Hallo, ich habe euch ja die Tage Der Ort, an dem die Reise endet von Yvonne Adhiambo Owuor vorgestellt und ich habe heute die Ehre, die Autorin zu treffen und sie interviewen zu dürfen und das seht ihr gleich. So, thank you Ms. Owuor for being my interview partner today. I'm going to ask you some questions about the book Dust you wrote and that you're going to present on the lit.cologne this evening. My first question is, the book is called Dust in English, but the German translation of the title is The Place Where the Journey Ends. What do you think about this translation?
Fascinated. I was fascinated by the translation. I'm always interested in what a book becomes as it travels the world. So I'm as open to that as I'm open to the title of Dust.
Okay, thank you. I was very impressed by the way you connected the past of Nipir and Akai with the present of their children, especially that of Odidi, and the course of your novel. And your construction was much more interesting than anything else I read before.
Oh, you sweet thing. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Yeah.
And you said in an interview that you loved reading since childhood, especially the works of Jane Austen and Tolkien.
Yes.
And how far have the books you read influenced your writing?
I think I'm writing because of the books I read. I think I'm writing because I keep trying to find a way back to the magic worlds that the words of these giants created. I haven't gotten there yet, but I hope I'll write my way in.
I'm very sure you will do, because this book is very great. How much of yourself can be found in the characters of Dust?
I think that's an interesting question. I know writers keep being asked that. I guess they're the means through which I'm the means through which the characters emerge, and perhaps the questions that exercise my own life. You know, the questions I have about meaning, about my country, about citizenship, about life and death, or what it means to be human. I guess these questions give life and energy to the characters. But sometimes, quite frankly, and certainly with the book Dust, and also with my earlier work, Weight of Whispers, I can reach the end of the book and I say, who are you? Where did you guys come from?
Okay.
Yeah.
I once read somewhere that Dust was writing itself and that the characters developed themselves.
Yeah.
Do you think it would have been possible for you to write this book at any other point of time?
No, not at all. Kenya had to go through what it was going through, you know, maybe I was exaggerating a little about the idea of the characters writing themselves, but what the characters had to teach me to do was to stop being a domineering presence. So in a way they shoved me. So if you can imagine, I was like a cloud covering their lives. So they had to move me aside in order for them to express themselves without my judging them or saying, people don't do that.
Okay.
You cannot kill. You should not try to kill your boyfriend. Ajan. So I had to learn how not to judge characters, allow characters to have their own free will. But these were hard lessons I had to learn. Other writers understand this very early, but I didn't. Yeah.
I hope that I will understand this by myself one day. So, you mentioned in an interview that there is a feeling of home when you are near the sea and especially the Indian Ocean.
Yes.
What is so special about the Indian Ocean for you that it will be part of your next planned project, the Dragonfly Sea?
The Dragonfly, actually I've finished it.
Oh.
I finished it's now being edited. I love the ocean. I saw the ocean when I was about 6.5 years old. And I'd never seen, I think in my spirit and in my heart, and it's the eyes of a child, seeing this immense presence, this mysterious presence that would sometimes be very big or very low, and I don't think I'd ever seen anything more magical or more mysterious or more amazing in my life. It was almost as if one had encountered the face of God and then somehow managed to live. I think the feeling of that has remained with me and persisted with up to this particular moment. And there was something of innocence at that time. Not only the view of the sea, the view of the immensity and possibilities of life. And when I go back to the sea, the feeling comes right back. just right back, fully.
Wow. Yeah, I was raised at the sea and I know what you're talking about. It's very enormous and it's hard to fix it.
Yes. And it's almost as if it allows you. It's one of those presences that seems to allow you. You can't dominate it. You can't pretend to say, oh, I know exactly what you are, because and I think I like the fact that it remains mysterious.
The sea is very magical.
Yes.
Politically motivated refugees are a current topic today, both in African countries and in Germany as well. And I suppose the date of release here in Germany of your book couldn't be more perfect. Would you like to share your personal thoughts about those Africa refugees in Europe today?
Okay. I think several thoughts come to mind, and it's an issue certainly since I've been in Berlin that keeps, if you want, manifesting its presence or its shadows, both its shadow and its light, wherever one walks. Just a couple of things. The human being has been in constant movement since the beginning of time. So quite frankly, the fact that this is presented as a splendid happening that has never occurred before is frankly rather young, rather foolish, frankly. And I say foolish only because it denies us a chance to engage with this in a very human kind of way, to allow a new language to emerge in terms of trying to give meaning to this moment in time. Why is there this cycle and circle of movement happening at this particular time all over the world? And it is all over the world. That's point one. The second thing is that the focus on the idea of Africans only moving to Europe denies the fact that more Europeans actually leave Europe and go to South America and Africa than Africans actually come to Europe. I'm amazed, for example, that during the time of the European financial crisis, very few Europeans are aware of the fact that over 250,000 Europeans moved to Angola and Mozambique to start new lives as economic migrants.
Wow, I didn't knew that before.
Oh no, Al Jazeera had a lot of features on that. Actually, I think the figure is higher. And I'm only talking about two African countries, Mozambique and Angola. If the figures were used or were spread throughout the African continent alone, mind you, I'm not talking about South America, that has also experienced an influx of European immigrants. But the narrative, unfortunately, is simply that and I know for a while Europe was focusing on the fact that there's a great Chinese migration into Africa. 1.5 million Chinese have moved into Africa. But it's very interesting that on the African continent that's not regarded as a crisis.
Okay.
You understand that? It's not a crisis. It's just the nature of our humanity in constant movement. So I'm more interested in the questions of why. Why the idea of others moving into Europe is turned into a crisis. And the numbers compared to what's happening in other places of the world, quite frankly, are not that high. If one put a comparison right across the put a proper comparison in terms of who are the people moving all over the world, the numbers actually are not high. But I'm always curious about narrative and the structuring of the narrative and who is telling the story and why are they telling it the way they're telling it. Is underlying the idea of swarms of Africans or swarms of Middle Easterners moving into Europe. Are we actually trying to not talk about the fact that what we're actually afraid of is the other? What we're afraid of is the dark other. Perhaps, are we actually hiding the fact that perhaps at a psychic level, it's the idea of the unknown horror approaching, the thing we don't know, the beast is approaching us. I'm very wary of language that's used to disguise the fear and the dread that lurks beneath the surface. If 250,000 Europeans can move to Africa to start new lives, and these were mostly young people, because mostly from Portugal, Greece, and Spain, and that's absent in the European imagination. Why? Why is that? Why is that not a story? It should be a story. Is it because it does not fit a narrative that has been put out there about who an immigrant is?
I am not sure what your answer is.
I don't have any answers. So, those are the questions that I have around that issue. So that's my little point around immigration.
I'm very, very impressed of you more and more. So I really want to thank you for triggering so interesting thoughts concerning the topics we just touched in this interview. And I could imagine that your book and maybe even this interview will influence the mindset of many, many readers and of our audience. So thank you very much for your time. And are there any final thoughts you would like to leave our audience with?
I just wanted to really thank you and thank you for what you're doing. And I'm so impressed by not only your vision, but your daring to go into places to ask new kind of questions. I have great hope that perhaps a new vocabulary that will bring better meaning to the world can emerge out of efforts such as yours. And you have my total support. Thank you very, very much for what you're doing.
Yeah, I have to say.
Yeah, thank you, really, thank you.